Hello everybody, we have another game on our speedrun against Triteron 976, and he hits us with a Sicilian. So we go e4, he goes c5, they control the center. We develop a knight towards the center. He goes d6, supporting his pawn, hitting the center. We're going to throw our bishop outside and give him this check, developing a piece with tempo. He blocks the attack. That's fine. We're just going to move our pawn, protect the center, and open up our bishop. He now threatens our bishop. We don't mind the trade. We're going to give it to him. We just wanted it outside of our pawn chain. Our pawns protect the light squares. And now we're ready to just follow up with the way we like to play similarly in the bishop's opening with f4, knight f3. So we're going to go f4, hitting the center, and put the knight behind it. Black goes e6, protecting the center, making some room for his pieces. You could maybe put your queen here, so it's hard for him to develop his bishop. If he attacks your queen, you could always maybe drop back, but we'll keep it simple and just develop a piece towards the center. Black develops a piece towards the center, makes sense. Maybe he wants to push, but that's okay. We're going to continue developing our rook and getting our king to safety. Black continues with the bishop e7 development. And he's ready to castle. So now we can try to put some pressure on this side of the board. That's where everything's facing, right? Our pawn structure, our pieces. So we're gonna just move our queen over so we can develop it. So he brings his knight out. It looks at the center. It's a developing move. Can't be bad. Developing our bishop, you could. But instead I'm going to improve our queen for free because it comes with a threat. And black ignores the threat and strikes in the center. However, if we take this, the rook's hit with tempo, so let's see. He's going to move the rook here and hit the queen. But if we push this pawn first and displace the knight, maybe the knight can go here, counterattack the queen, so you can't end defend the pawn. If you try to attack the knight and move the queen, he can move the pawn and defend the knight. I mean, you still have a nice position there, but it's not exactly what we're looking for. So let's see if we take the pawn and he moves the rook over. I mean, just taking a pawn and lining up the rook is not exactly what I want. So instead I'm gonna just strike the center. I'm gonna move this pawn, which opens up my bishop, right? Opens up my queen. So now everything has more squares. Threatens to push again. It's an attacking move before he's even castled. Taking this pawn, I think it's like more of a trap than anything, because he gets to develop, and you don't have good follow-ups. Your pieces aren't in attacking position. But this is a good move. He's not castled yet, so he ignores me again and counterattacks my knight. I like where his head's at. We can actually take this pawn because the threat on the queen is too strong, so he'll have to respond. So I'm gonna throw that in. I'm gonna throw in this capture so I can open up the F file for my rook and maybe lure his queen into a vulnerable square, and also it lures it away from that. So there's a lot of good things. This again, if he goes here, we want, you want to be able to have a good follow-up. So this is nice because it opens up the rook and improves the piece for free. It puts a lot of pressure on his position. Whereas if you go here, you run into stuff like that. Your knight is still hanging though, so you got to keep that in mind. But I think the attack on the queen is a lot stronger than the attack on the knight. And so you don't have to automatically move a piece once it's attacked. You might have options in the position. You should probably look at those options. So now his queen is hit. This pawn is very tender, if you know, which means his knight doesn't want to move. But we can play e5 if his queen moves, and it's defended, and we can kick this knight away. And once the knight moves, the f7 pawn is going to fall. And I'd much rather take the f7 pawn than the g7 pawn. It's a lot safer for my position. And once his knight moves, we'll then have access to the center because his knight will have undefended the center. So it's good that he's thinking. I like that he's spending his time trying to actually come up with a good move. Maybe he's gonna try a queen trade, something like that. But again, if I take it and he takes with the knight, I could take this pawn. So I'd at the very least be up a pawn. And then I'd also have this. So he does move his queen back. Kind of solidifies everything. He had to move it, so what are you going to do? You can't really develop your bishop. I mean, you can go to e2, which is fine. Can't really go here because you don't want to run into that. I don't want to move my knight back. I want to move it forward. So if we go e5 and he takes our piece, we can take his piece. But then he can take our thing. We can drop back. That looks good. Otherwise, he takes us, we take him. He takes us, we take. That looks good. And alright, we'll give it a shot. e5. We want to play aggressive attacking moves. We want to attack stuff on his side of the board. Now that we're not fully developed, but we're somewhat developed. But his king is still stuck in the center, so that's less than ideal. He now moves the knight out of the way to the side. This threatens the queen. Notice the knight is defended twice, so we can move the queen kind of wherever we like. Where do we like? This pawn's tender. We can hit it a third time with the queen, potentially. This hits the knight and the pawn. And also supports our knight jump in here. So we'll go to this route. It's a double attack, triple threat. So it looks pretty strong. Coordinating. If you're going to take on f7, you know, the queen is a nice piece. Because then you have e6 after that, and it looks very bad. So black takes our knight, and that protects the pawn laterally. Fine. We're going to take this bishop, and his knight still has no squares. This pawn is not defended, but his king is here. So even though it attacks the queen, we're going to get our other rook into the game for free with an attack on the knight, which is pinned. Pretty cool. And besides, this pawn, I plan on sacking it anyway. If he doesn't take it one day, I'm pushing e6 regardless. But right now his knight's hanging. I have a bishop, he doesn't. So I'm happy to have that dark square bishop. Now I can plant it pretty anywhere on the board, and it's uncontested. Very nice. So black goes f6, trying to counterattack piece for piece. But if I take this, it comes with check, but he can go g6, counterattacking my queen. So my check isn't actually a free move because I have to move my queen to a place that does not threaten stuff. So instead of doing that, his knight is still trapped. I can take this pawn. I can move my bishop. If I move my bishop back and he protects the pawn, then this thing is super weak. So let's go for that. Also, we have g4 if we want. So basically I'm just trying to take away all of the stuff he's trying to do. Okay, so now he takes this knight. As mentioned, there's the rook move. We still can take this with check because that's a free piece. And after he does this, we can move our queen, you know, back here. If I pin the knight first, do I lose out on the knight if he tries to protect it? Let's say with the queen. So let me just take the knight first. That way I can guarantee my piece. And now the knight is still pinned. And now I'll move my rook here next. I just wanted to make sure he couldn't defend it or didn't have any resource. And since it came with a check, it's almost like I didn't spend so much time doing it. Now he finally castles. He realizes, however, the drawback of this is he's undefending a pawn that comes with a fork. So not much to think about there. Tactical opportunity. You want your brain to spot that quickly. So you do some puzzle rush. You put on some music. You relax. You make a nice environment that you enjoy, not stressful. And now he's just noticing maybe. Not to mention the knight is the pawn was defending the knight, so the knight is now undefended. So he's hanging everything. If I had a dark square bishop, I would try to pin him. I mean a light square bishop. So it's a good try by Trideron, but whoa. He sacks his knight so that if I take with the queen, he can pin my bishop. But he still loses a piece. But I'm going to take the piece this way. That way, I could also move my bishop. More stuff. He could counterattack my queen, though. Either way, got the knight. Can't complain. He pins the rook. But the queen's defended by the knight, but the knight is actually hanging, so I'm going to move the knight. Defend the bishop. The queen's undefended, but the rook doesn't have to move, so I can double my rooks, and what a position this is, right? I'm up everything. How nice. We'll just casually double, no big deal. Get all of our pieces into the game. We have 2 minutes and 30 seconds. We have to just close it out. Yes, there's stuff hanging, but we have 2 pieces, right? We don't need this F with C5 pawn. We could just trade whatever we want, and that's going to be the game. See how his rooks don't matter? I've just got my stuff in the game. You could take, of course, but I will if he doesn't move it again. Everything's winning in a position like this. You just have to not blunder your queen, you know, or something ridiculous. But all you have to do is trade these 3 pieces, and you automatically win the game. So you don't have to, you know, what do I do? What moves do I make? I don't know what to do. All you have to do is trade these 3 pieces. So he moves his rook, but the knight never has to move. So now we're just gonna shift our queen over here so we could start trading these pieces. We're also triple stacked. Our position looks very beautiful the way it's set up. Okay, this is just because he has nothing to do. So we're just gonna put our queen in front of his queen and see what he does. Completely ignoring what he's doing, right? I'm not paying attention because it's not important. Sometimes what your opponent does is important. Okay, so he moves the queen. We have stuff like this. But again, I'm going to go for the trades. So I'm going to put my queen in his face on that square. And now my queen's closer to his king, so if he doesn't end up trading, he might get checkmated. You know, with some knight backup, some bishop backup. I could see some potential mates if this guy does not queen trade. Also, his stuff is hanging, but... Okay, so he goes for the pawn. I'm actually going to take back to support the knight and also to open the c-file, because now that he did that, I'm just going to throw a rook here because that's way, way more helpful in helping me. I was going to try to checkmate him with the queen, the knight, the bishop, but you give me a rook too? Oh, that's not going to be good because his escape square is cut off. So that's a deadly check. So, I mean, that was a terrible decision, opening the c-file for my rook. Almost guarantees the checkmate because he can't do anything. And he takes the pawn. Don't be like Trideron, guys. He played very well up until a point. And you can see that legally he can't move his king, which means queen c4. So we could pre-move checkmate. And this guy held on for 28 moves, so very respectable. He said good game, we'll say good game. Let's check the analysis super quickly. Where's the button? Okay, so what's the problem with this? Oh, there's no problem. Hold on, what am I missing? Why does the graph look like that? This. So they want me to go knight a4 so I can get it in. And when he protects against that, let's just say he just does something random. I'll then take here so the queen doesn't take. And somehow that's +3. Okay. Wow. +5. Alright, I mean, I don't know why I'm analyzing to myself, but alright, decent game. It was fun to attack down the middle. You cannot leave your king. You cannot leave your king there like that. Right? You need to get it out of the way, especially in a position like that. You can't, it's not going to end well for you. So, moral of the story, castle earlier. Now you know. I'll see you in the next video. Submit your rapid games in my Discord. Goodbye.